And yes, all four chutes now deployed. It's going to continue to descend. It's going to continue to slow down and then ultimately splash down in the Atlantic there. We're now under a kilometer in altitude. Just about 750 meters to go.
In case if you're just joining us, you can see on your screen there, Dragon has just re-entered the Earth's atmosphere after departing from the International Space Station. We have a gorgeous shot of 4 healthy parachutes deployed and slowing the vehicle down as it is approaching the surface of the Atlantic Ocean off the coast of Florida.
And it's continuing to descend under those chutes. We just passed 500 meters. Everything continuing to look good via reports to all the flight control teams. Now we're at about 400 meters. And just passing 300 meters, continuing to descend. We might be right on time. We were planning on splashing down at about 5:45 a.m. Pacific, and we're getting real close to that bingo time. Just past 200 meters.
And we have confirmation that Dragon is now under 100 meters, is 100 meters above the surface of the ocean.
So next up, standing by for splashdown.
Confirmation of splashdown. Dragon has returned to planet Earth. It is now back home, and you can see on your screen our 2 fast boats racing out to the capsule, now in recovery.
That splashdown came right on time, 5:45 a.m. Pacific, 8:45 a.m. over on the East Coast. The teams that have been ready and waiting, they were staged just a few nautical miles away. They're going to start moving in now. You can see those 2 fast approach boats already speeding their way towards the capsule.
While there's still a little bit more work to be done at this point, like we said, the recovery team has to safe the vehicle and then lift it onto the recovery vessel. However, obviously by the excited cheers here at Mission Control, the splashdown is an enormous event for us in terms of the safe re-entry, or excuse me, the safe return to Earth from the International Space Station.
That's right, and you'll notice 2 boats on their way. 1 boat actually responsible for beginning to safe the vehicle and get it ready to go up onto the boat. The other one's going to go off and collect those parachutes as those 4 main chutes actually get jettisoned away from the spacecraft as soon as the vehicle detects that it's splashed down in the water. But if you missed it, I'm really sorry, because that was really cool to see. But Dragon did splash down at 5:45 a.m. Pacific time, 8:45 a.m. over there on the East Coast, where they're now moving in on a Dragon spacecraft in the water, ready to recover it.
Exactly. So like we said, the recovery team has been ready and waiting for a Dragon splashdown. It's been quite the morning, evening. Dan and I have been here since yesterday night, bringing you coverage from Dragon departure from the International Space Station, now all the way down to splashdown. So it's a great next milestone, and we are excited to bring you coverage of the recovery operations as well. But we have a few minutes before that happens, so we're going to take a break momentarily, and we will continue bringing coverage as the recovery operations progress.
so we're going to take a quick break from the operations because right now we have Benji Reed. He's the Director of the Commercial Crew Mission Management here at SpaceX. Benji, first off, congratulations, successful splashdown, successful end of demo 1. What's it been like to watch through this mission? What are your thoughts? What are you looking forward to? Have you had a chance to catch your breath?
No, but I'm super excited. Thank you for having me up here. To be honest, I'm kind of shaking, and I'm super, excited. It was an incredible journey to get to this moment. The teams have just done an amazing job, both the SpaceX and the NASA teams jointly. It's fundamentally, this is like a great day for the nation, for SpaceX, for NASA, for all of us, really for the world. I think it was Ann who said this is the first time in 40 years that we have a spacecraft designed for humans to fly. And not only did she fly and go to the space station, do everything she was supposed to do, but we brought her home safe and sound, landing here in the Atlantic. Just amazing. I can't believe how well the whole mission has gone. Pretty much I think on every point, everything's been nailed all the way along. Particularly this last piece, we're all very excited to see as we go through re-entry and parachute, drogue deploy, then main deploy, splashdown. Everything happened just perfectly, right on time, the way that we expected it to.
Almost
Beautiful.
down to the second.
Almost down to the second, right?
Yeah.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
And so, as a team, SpaceX, we're here. We're just super honored to have the opportunity to have done this mission, to have worked with NASA, to work through this. In Demo 1 is fundamentally this first major milestone in our process towards certification. I always like to remind everybody that this is a whole system, right? There's Crew Dragon, but there's the Falcon that's going to be certified to fly humans. There's also all the ground systems, the operations, our entire factory and production system. Everything that we do is being certified to be able to fly astronauts safely. And this is a huge step towards that. As we kind of look back over what happened over the last few days, which seems incredible to me, and really it's the culmination of years of work to get us just to this day. We had launch, Crew Dragon deployed, beautiful free flight. One of the things that's hard to test when you're on the ground is how fluids work in microgravity. So things like the prop system and all of the propulsion, and what's amazing is that worked just well, worked perfectly, just like we expected. We got to station, we docked, and it's the first time I think in history that a commercial vehicle and also an American vehicle has docked autonomously to the International Space Station. So that's just super cool. Loaded with all kinds of sensors, all kinds of tests that we did. We met Ripley. Yeah. We got to see, she's loaded with sensors so we can understand exactly all the forces that'll happen on the crew as they come, as they're launched and then sent to station and come home. We got to meet the little Earth guy. I heard he's going to stay on station. Yep. and so that'll be for Bob and Doug to retrieve. So that's going to be exciting. Undocking, of course. Some more free flight, and then we came home. Jettisoned the trunk, closed the nose cone, and then again, like I said, just beautiful parachute deployment. Everything the way we expected. All of these gazillions of tests that we've been doing on parachutes. All of the analysis and work that we've done on understanding the aerodynamics of re-entry and coming home, everything's just wonderful. The important thing now is we take all of this data that we've learned. We love data. We love data, right? I mean, fundamentally, we're engineers and engineering-driven behavior, right? It's what we got to do. So we take all that great data, and we're going to apply that to the next steps. So what's coming up next, I think, because believe it or not, as excited and still shaking as I am about this return, there's a lot more to do, right? Because our ultimate goal is to be able to continue to staff space station, right? And provide astronauts rides up to space, give them a safe place to be, a safe place to come home in, and do crew rotations every 6 months. So how do we get there? So we finished Demo 1, huge milestone. Next up, we take that data, we apply it, we learn from it, and we're going to go to our in-flight abort test, similar to that pad abort test that we did a few years ago. Except this time we put the Dragon. It'll actually be the same Dragon that we flew on Demo 1. We're going to take that and put it on top of a Falcon 9, launch it, get it going super fast, get it to test conditions, and then escape it off of the rocket. And again, do the same thing, bring it home safely on its parachutes, land it in the ocean. And then from there, after we get that done, we go to Demo 2. And that's kind of like, wow, that's the big prize, right? Because that's going to be sending Bob and Doug, our astronauts and our partners and our friends, sending them up on Dragon, taking them to the station safely, bringing them home safely. And then with that done, we'll go through final full certification and start those 6-month rotation missions, which we're just also excited about. It's important to take a step back and think about all of what it took to get here, all the work from all the joint teams, NASA and SpaceX, all the support that we've had from friends and family. And really, I think the most important thing is that on behalf of all of the 6,000 people here at SpaceX, we really want to thank NASA, we want to thank the space station, the international partners, and thank the American public for their support and partnership as we go through this. We're really proud to be part of this endeavor.
Thank you for being here with us. It is early Friday morning here in Hawthorne, so for those of us that work here at SpaceX, we still got a full workday going, and obviously we've already been working on Demo 2 for a while, even though today was the Demo 1 day, so I'm sure that you, like me, will continue our work on Demo 2 for the rest of the day.
I'm going into meetings to start talking about the next steps that we've already been working on Demo 2. So.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much for being here with us. Congratulations to your team as well on the success of the last week. Really, it's been awesome for us to be able to share the hard work of all SpaceX employees with the public. So with that being said, thanks for being here. We're going to take a quick break as we bring you more coverage of the recovery operations, which you can see is ongoing on your screen there on the left. So stick around, we'll be back in just a couple.
now. We're waiting to get some video back from those recovery teams out there in the Atlantic. For now, though, we do have another guest for today's broadcast, NASA Administrator Jim Bridenstine, who's standing by over at NASA headquarters in Washington, D.C. So I'll send it over to you, Mr. Bridenstine. Thoughts about today's mission, what this means for NASA, and what we have to look forward to in the future.
Absolutely. This is an amazing achievement in American history. In fact, I said on a press conference at 4 in the morning after it launched that this was the dawn of a new era in American human spaceflight, and really in the spaceflight for the entire world because of all of our international partners on the International Space Station. But this achievement spans many administrations, it spans many NASA administrators. I want to start by thanking Mike Griffin, who was the NASA administrator that really got this program going during the George W. Bush administration. And of course, Charlie Bolden was the administrator for 8 years under President Barack Obama. He kept this program strong. And then of course, Robert Lightfoot was immediately preceded me. And here we are today with this amazing achievement, and the current president, President Trump, his budgets for NASA have been as strong as they have been in my adult lifetime. So this really is an American achievement that spans many generations of NASA administrators, and in fact, you know, over a decade of work by the NASA team. So I want to congratulate, first of all, the NASA Commercial Crew Program, all of the amazing engineers that have been involved from the very beginning. I want to thank, of course, the amazing achievement of SpaceX and their entire team, and the vision of Elon Musk and what he has done to help really rejuvenate this very inspirational moment for this new era in American human spaceflight. So this is really an amazing achievement for all of America, but it's not just for all of America right now. It goes back in time. There are so many people that deserve credit, and really what's unique now is that NASA can be a customer. And I know there's a long way to go. We launched an uncrewed spacecraft here. Of course, we have Demo 2, which will be a crewed spacecraft. And between now and then, we have a pad abort that we need to test as well. And so these are all capabilities that are leading to a day where we are launching American astronauts on American rockets from American soil. I have heard, when I was a member of Congress, I heard over and over again, how do we keep constancy of purpose? Because it seems like we lurch from one administration to the next and changing visions and changing budgets. How do we keep constancy? Well, this is a perfect example of a program. When we talk about these things that NASA does, it takes in many cases decades to achieve this kind of capability. And the constancy of purpose here for all of these years is important. But now NASA can be a customer. We can be one customer of many customers for human space flight in what we believe will be a very robust commercial marketplace for space operations. And we're going to have numerous providers that are going to compete on cost and innovation. And of course, that's how we're able to do what we've seen now, where rockets are being reused. The idea that we can reuse rockets and drive down cost and increase access to space, just an amazing capability for our country, an amazing capability for the world. Just like we reuse airplanes, there's going to come a day when we're reusing rockets and spaceflight is going to become more routine. We're not there yet. We have a long way to go. But this is an amazing achievement in this path to really a sustainable return to the moon, quite frankly, which is my charge the President has given me to get us back to the moon. So we're driving down costs for low Earth orbit. We're commercializing low Earth orbit, not just with launch, but also eventually with space stations, with human activities, where NASA can be a customer for human activities in low Earth orbit. And then we can use the taxpayer resources that are bestowed upon us. We can use those resources to do exploration, to go further, to go back to the moon sustainably, where we can stay at the moon and ultimately go on to Mars. And this is one small piece in that really grand vision, but this is no small piece. This is an amazing achievement in the history of the United States of America, and it just really exemplifies what we can achieve when we maintain that constancy of purpose.
All right. And thank you, Administrator Jim Bridenstine, again, joining us just there from NASA headquarters over in Washington, D.C. We are still waiting to get some views from all the recovery teams. They are still in that recovery process. Again, we expected it to be between 30 minutes and an hour until they get the Dragon capsule back up on the boat. So before we do get those feeds back, we're going to head out to JSC real quick, the Johnson Space Center in Houston, where we have a few more folks standing by, including Steve Stitch, who is the Deputy Program Manager for NASA's Commercial Crew Program. We also have Mike Hopkins, a NASA astronaut, and one of those astronauts already assigned to a future Dragon mission. And then Mr. Kenny Todd, he's the Operations Integration Manager for the International Space Station. So guys, I'll send it over to you real quick. Offer us your thoughts on how this mission's unfolded and what's ahead in the future.
Hey, thank you, Dan. Hey, it's great to be here representing the Commercial Crew Program. Just what an outstanding day to be part of our program. You know, we let our contracts in 2014 for these first missions, and to sit here today and talk about Demo 1 and how great the flight went and what we're going to learn from it, it's just amazing. I'd like to congratulate the SpaceX team. Phenomenal job getting the vehicles ready and executing the flight. Our whole NASA team that worked the mission. And if you just think about the enormity of what happened in this flight and all the prep that went into it, getting the pad refurbished at 39A, getting the flight control room set up, getting the vehicles built, getting the Falcon 9 ready, all the analysis, all the mission support that went into it, the sims and the practice leading up to this flight over the last year or so. Just been a tremendous job. I would say one of the things that we learned during this flight is the great relationship we have between the program and SpaceX. I would say our teams work seamlessly back and forth with SpaceX, not only in the lead up to the flight, but in how we manage the flight through the Dragon mission management team, and then also working with Kenny Todd and the Space Station program. Space Station program did a phenomenal job supporting our program while we were docked to station, on the way to station, and the international partnership as well. So really great opportunity for this mission. The last 24 hours have been exciting for us. You know, we closed the hatches yesterday around noon, got into the undock today about 1:31 a.m., did a few small separations to get away from station. If you watched that on NASA TV, that was flawless. Did about 3 separations to get down below station. Executed the deorbit burn at about 6:52 a.m. Central Time, and then landed at just a few minutes ago at 7:45. The vehicle is doing well. The recovery crews are out. They're on the scene. They've already been around the spacecraft and made sure it was secure for personnel. You might have seen that one of the parachutes happened. It was a very calm day with very low sea states and low winds. One of the chutes kind of landed on the Dragon capsule. They already got that off. So that's going really well. It'll probably take 30 minutes to maybe an hour to get it back on the ship. But then when you kind of look overall at this mission, it was a great dress rehearsal for Demo 2. We learned a phenomenal amount in the pre-launch time frame about how to load the vehicle and thinking forward to how we'll put the crews in the vehicle. You know, the ascent profile for this flight, we practiced the exact profile that Mike Hopkins and others will fly very soon, Doug Hurley and Bob Binken. We had the abort system, the crew escape system in Dragon actually enabled for this flight, and we were able to see how that worked, and we'll get the data back and look at those triggers and how it performed. You know, on orbit, we got a lot of great data on the vehicle in terms of the thermal performance, power performance. The vehicle really did better than we expected, and then the rendezvous was phenomenal as we came in, checked out those sensors. The link to space station worked, the command link, watching the vehicle come in, and then have a real precise docking and seeing how the docking system performed, so that was phenomenal. And then during the attached phase, of course, we had cargo ops, which will do the same thing on both Demo 2 and then the Crew 1 and other missions. And then we did a robotic survey of the vehicle to look at the thermal protection system and other systems, and that went really well. I will say one thing, this mission, you know, it was only 6 days long. It was a sprint from start to finish. And thinking about, you know, where we've been in operations in that sprint, I think Kenny would probably tell you the same thing. It was just a phenomenal job by the team. And then, of course, today, you know, the undocking, watching how those systems performed, that went flawless. It's a very tight sequence between undocking and the deorbit burn, how the nose cone performed, how the deorbit burn was executed, and the entry was phenomenal. We did have Riley on board, a test dummy, and that's going to give us a lot of important data for the accelerations during both the ascent phase and then the entry phase under the parachutes and then landing. So we'll collect that data and look at that. You know, over the next few weeks, we'll be doing post-flight reviews. In fact, just next week, we'll have one for the launch vehicle and the ground segment at KSC. We'll start reviewing that. And then subsequently, we'll do reviews with SpaceX on the orbit phase of the mission. This flight really sets us up well for the rest of the year. The very vehicle that's in the water in the Atlantic today will be the in-flight abort vehicle. And so one of the first things that will happen is the vehicle will come back to KSC and go over into the processing area and start getting refurbed for the in-flight abort test, which should be in the summer timeframe, in the June timeframe. And then Demo 2 vehicles at Hawthorne getting built for the first crewed mission. That's in progress and going well. That work has continued all through the flight. So that'll be a busy year for us for SpaceX with in-flight abort in the June timeframe, and then Demo 2 later in the year with the first crewed mission. I don't think we saw really anything in the mission so far, and we've got to do the data reviews that you know, would preclude us having the crewed mission later this year. And then after that, you know, it's a busy time in our program also. If you look in the April timeframe, we're getting ready for the orbit flight test for Boeing, and that will happen very soon. And so our program will transition after this mission and the data reviews into preparing not only for in-flight abort and Demo 2, but also the orbit flight test, the uncrewed flight test for Boeing. And that'll be coming up in the April timeframe. Spacecraft 3, which is the Boeing vehicle, is coming together at the Commercial Crew Processing Facility down in Florida, and they're in the middle of a bunch of very critical testing right now at an El Segundo to verify that the spacecraft can work successfully in space. And then later on this year, we'll have the crewed flight test for Boeing as well. So if you just look at all the activities in Commercial Crew, it's a super busy time. In addition to this flight, in the last few weeks, we did parachute tests for SpaceX and Boeing. And so if you look at all the activities to get ready for flying our crews, it's just a very exciting time. So again, congratulations to our SpaceX team and all the NASA people across the country that worked so hard for many, many years on this flight. It really sets us up for the rest of the year, and it's a super exciting time to be in Commercial Crew. Now I'll turn it over to Hopper.
All right, thanks, Steve. So on behalf of the Astronaut Office and the crew, I'd like to also extend our congratulations to the SpaceX team, to the Commercial Crew team, to really all of NASA, and to everyone that was involved in this major milestone on returning human launch and landing capabilities back to U.S. soil. I think that's very exciting. But as you can see on the video of the vehicle, work is still ongoing. The recovery procedures process is still ongoing, and I'm personally very anxious to hear how I think it's Ripley is feeling after they pull her out of the capsule and get her back onto the recovery vehicle. In terms of some major takeaways from a crew perspective, I think one of the things that we're very excited about from this DM1 mission is, for the first time, we've gotten to see an end-to-end test. And so now we've brought together the people, the hardware, and all the processes and procedures, and gotten to see how they all work together. And that's very important on this as we move towards putting people on board the vehicle. And as Steve also said, of course, we're very interested in seeing the data. I suspect there's going to be some lessons learned, some improvements, some changes that we're going to have to make from this. That's all part of the testing process. In terms of what's ahead for the crew, so for all of the crew, including the DM2 crew, Bob and Doug, and Crew 1, myself and Victor Glover, and then the backup crew, Kjell Lindgren, we're all going to be following very closely the in-flight abort test, as well as the procedures, the training to get ready for that DM2 mission. We also have a lot of verification testing, final verification testing that we'll all be involved in, as well as test subjects for that. Specifically for Bob and Doug as DM2, of course, they're going to start focusing even more on that training for the DM2 mission. After this mission, they've got a lot less runway in front of them, so it's going to start moving, I think, think, a lot quicker. For the Crew 1 crew, the team, Victor and I, and even for Chell as the backup, we've got a lot of training, not only for Dragon, but also for ISS. Our mission is to not only get up there and return safely, but is actually to do some work for the ISS program while we're there. And so that means we've got to do all of the training for being able to do the spacewalks and being able to operate the robotic arm and maintain the station and do that critical science that's been going on for, gosh, over 18 years now. Pretty amazing. So that's what's ahead for us. I guess finally I'd like to just kind of emphasize that this mission, this amazing week that we've had, is really just one small step in this very methodical build-up approach that we've been going through, that the program has laid out, that the company has laid out in order for us to put people on board these vehicles and get them up and back to the station. And so, again, congratulations to the entire team, and over to Kenny.
Thanks, Hopper. And just about any conversation you're going to have today with anybody around here is going to start with a congratulations. And so I'll certainly offer mine to Steve Stitch, Kathy Leaders, the Commercial Crew Program. Just a phenomenal effort. It's not easy doing what this program's had to do for the last several years, and to finally see the product of that has just been incredible for the last week. And our friends out at SpaceX, Benji Reed, Artie Matthews, the team out there, we've been working with them for the better part of a decade doing commercial cargo services, and that's we know that team. They're as every bit excited about human spaceflight as we are, and their passion shows. It shows whenever they launch a vehicle. It shows whenever they bring a vehicle home. There's just a lot of excitement around that, and it's quite invigorating for a lot of us to see that kind of passion. It really is cool. So anyway, to Benji and the team at SpaceX, certainly we pass along our congratulations from the space station program, and we'll certainly look forward to seeing you guys again soon. As far as the milestones, the things we got to do while the Crew Dragon was on board, one of the things from a station program that we were really looking to do was to check out the interface that we installed here a couple of years ago on the front end of PMA-2. To ensure that our latches worked properly, interfacing with the Dragon, that we were able to flow power through the interface. All of that worked just perfectly. And so for us, we feel like we're in a good position going forward to support the Commercial Crew Program, and that we don't have anything else, at least on the front end of the PMA-2, that we need to worry about going forward. We are later this year going to install another docking adapter up on the Node 2 Zenith port, which will give us two ports to dock the Commercial Crew vehicles, and so we're excited to get on with that activity later on this year. So as far as the team, I talked to our team earlier this week, and I said probably in about a week from now we'll forget that we had a Crew Dragon on board, just because of what lies in front of us, and that is we have a new crew coming up later this coming week on Thursday. We'll see the launch of 58 Soyuz from Baikonur. And so we're excited about that. The team has already started to deploy there. The crew's there and ready to go, and so we're excited to get the crew back up to a size of 6 again. Again, just gives us more flexibility, the opportunity to do more science and work on the backlog that we have on board. So we're excited about that. And one of the first things we're going to be tackling as soon as we get back up to a crew of 6 is a set of EVAs. We can call it a triple EVA because, like it sounds, it's a set of 3 EVAs. We're going to do 3 of them in about 16 days. And so right after hatch open, we're going to be hard at work trying to put the final plans in place for those EVAs. And then shortly after that, we've got a couple of cargo vehicles coming up. In fact, another SpaceX vehicle, and also a Northrop Grumman Cygnus is coming on board as well during the month of April. So there's a lot going on. Again, we're very excited about what's happened this week, and next week we'll go tackle some of the stuff that's coming forward. But at least today and for this weekend, we want to celebrate this accomplishment with the Commercial Crew Program and the folks from SpaceX, and bask in the glow of that along with them and enjoy it. It was quite a few days here, Dan. So with that, we'll hand it back to you.
All right, thank you, Kenny, Mike, and Steve over there in Houston. Thanks for those words. And now we're going to get back to the action. We're getting some views back of that recovery of the Dragon spacecraft. The teams are in place, and now we're just waiting for it to make its way onto the recovery ship.
Exactly. So now that Dragon has splashed down in the Atlantic Ocean, the recovery team is going to go through a number of steps as we recover the Dragon spacecraft and lift it onto the recovery ship. Now, in case if you're joining us, well, just real quick, you can see on your screen there a live shot of Dragon recovery, the capsule bobbing in the sea there with the Dragon team working on those recovery operations. In case you are just joining us, the mission has gone very smoothly so far today. Dragon successfully splashed down in the Atlantic Ocean just several minutes ago.
At 5:45 a.m. Pacific.
5:45 a.m. So, gosh, I can't believe how late in the morning it is already. Time flies. And about 240 nautical miles away from Cape Canaveral. Approximately 6 hours prior to splashdown, Dragon autonomously undocked from the International Space Station, completed a series of departure burns, jettisoned its trunk section, and performed its final burn, the deorbit burn, and placed itself on a trajectory toward the Atlantic Ocean.
And this is actually a replay of that final descent from just a little bit earlier this morning. At this point, Dragon was under the 2 drogue chutes, and those were responsible for all of that initial slowing down. And they also were responsible for pulling out the main parachutes, which you can see in the replay here. And those 4 main parachutes deployed successfully. We heard from Benji and also the teams during the action that they went exactly as planned, everything kind of happening exactly on the timeline too. But that all came after Dragon successfully re-entered the Earth's atmosphere, and those parachutes were deployed. And now though, we're on to the final part of Dragon's journey, as it's pretty soon going to get lifted out of the water and placed onto the recovery boat.
So again, this is a replay of the re-entry and splashdown that we witnessed live several minutes ago. Gorgeous shot of those lovely full parachutes as they are slowing the Dragon capsule down to the Atlantic Ocean.
Yeah, it's already been 45 minutes since that happened.
Wow.
It feels like it was just
5.
about 5 minutes ago. But yeah, that splashdown was 5:45 a.m. Pacific, 8:45 a.m. So a little bit later in the morning over there on the East Coast when Dragon splashed down again. Yeah, about 200 or so nautical miles out from Port Canaveral.
If you've been following along with our mission this week, you already know that we don't have actual humans on board, just Ripley, our anthropomorphic test device. She has lots of sensors placed around the body, I guess you would say.
Inside the suit, there's a microphone inside as well.
Yeah, so this will give us lots of really cool data about the G-forces and what the test device experienced during launch and docking and re-entry. However, as with all steps so far in our Demo 1 mission, our teams will be covering the full steps in the recovery process as if it were an actual crewed mission in order to prepare for our first time with NASA astronauts on board. You saw earlier that the recovery fast boats went very quickly to the splashdown point. Go Searcher, the main recovery vessel, followed along quickly, which you can see in your screen right now. Wow, it's a picture perfect day, so it's pretty great. So we're going to be watching as the recovery vessel gets closer to the Dragon capsule, and we'll be able to see it get lifted out of the ocean. That's a beautiful shot there. So our recovery crew has been already performed the safety checks that they do after splashdown. The vehicle itself safed itself as well as soon as it detected that it was in the water, and the team made sure it was safe to approach the Dragon spacecraft.
And then upon that immediate detection of landing, Dragon automatically released all of those main parachutes, and that just prevents the wind from catching them and potentially pulling or dragging the spacecraft across the water. And those parachutes also get recovered. Another one of the fast approach boats was tasked with that immediately after splashdown. Following that successful parachute cutaway, Dragon automatically saves any of the pyrotechnics still present on the vehicle, and it can also automatically perform a couple of additional minor system configurations. The astronauts, if they were on board, would remain seated, so Ripley obviously hasn't gotten up right now on the boat, but
she has not unbuckled her seatbelt yet.
She has not unbuckled her seatbelt yet. The astronauts, if they were on board, would remain seated, and they stay in their suits at this point. But the Dragon spacecraft has air conditioning on board, and that helps keep the temperatures in check inside the spacecraft. And the communication system on board also remains powered, so the crew still has their two-way communication as they are just kind of sitting there in the capsule waiting for the teams to move in and pull them up on the boat.
If I were an astronaut inside the capsule right now, I would imagine this point to be kind of like when you're going through a car wash. You know, you're safe, you can talk, you're comfortable in your enclosed environment, but you can't open the door just yet.
There's a lot of water.
Yeah. Now it took a little bit over 10 minutes for the recovery to complete their safety checks, and they completed their preparation activities. And right now, as we can see, they are making progress toward being able to lift Dragon up and onto the recovery vessel. As part of the preparation for this lift, we saw earlier that a member of the recovery team actually climbed on top of the capsule, and that was in order to attach the Dragon's hoist rings and connect the lifting line. So a lot of physical requirements for that particular role. I probably would not be able to do it. I'd fall right off most likely. But it's really cool to be able to see our recovery team, who has been practicing live in action here with these beautiful shots from the Atlantic Ocean.
And so for now, we're just going to continue getting these great views from the boats out there. This view is actually from one of the other vessels that traveled out to the recovery zone. This is from the Go Navigator and the combined NASA teams with a number of managers, flight docs, and other personnel that will be involved in kind of the game day operations when we have crew on board the spacecraft. They're on the Go Navigator.
Like we've mentioned before, the ship that you see there is fully equipped for medical checkouts. If we did have astronauts on board Dragon today, as soon as they egress from the side hatch, they would be taken into the medical quarters and given a medical examination just to make sure that everything is good and everyone's in good health. There's a helicopter pad on top of it. Additionally, due to unpredictable sea conditions, whenever we splash down, it might take the crew a couple days to get out and back from the splashdown point, and so the ship is also capable of housing the recovery crew for a couple of weeks, realistically, if absolutely necessary. Obviously, a long time to be on a ship, in my opinion, but it's fully equipped, and I've been on that ship myself, and it's just incredible to me as someone that keeps my eyes towards the sky and not necessarily, water, ocean sickness. It's just incredible to me that we're able to have a vessel like this in our fleet, really, when you think of the full encapsulation of what a mission requires. It's not just going up, it's coming back down and back onto land safely as well. And this vessel is a great example of how we're able to do that.
And as mentioned just a little while ago, so this is actually a view from the Go Navigator. That's one of the two ships that have traveled out to the splashdown zone. One of the NASA personnel on board that ship is Shane Kimbrough, and he's actually the lead for all of the various NASA recovery teams and pretty much responsible for overseeing all the crew's needs and all their recovery, all their quarantine before launch. He likes to say I think he told us they kind of belong to him once they're in quarantine and getting ready. So he's actually joining us now via a satellite phone from that ship. Shane, thanks for calling in real quick. How's everything looking out there with Dragon Recovery?
Hey, Dan, great to talk to you from the Go Navigator. Everything's going really well. It was just beautiful seeing it come in on the drogues and then the main parachutes and then obviously the splashdown. You guys are probably seeing video now. The Go Searcher is getting pretty close to getting the capsule and getting it on deck.
And so, Shane, what was the trip out there like? I know we're kind of at a landing zone a little bit further away than when we have crew actually on board, but how's everything look so far?
Everything's been great. The crew's taken great care of us. It was about a 30-hour journey to get out here to the splashdown zone, but we woke up this morning knowing we were only a couple hours away from all the action happening, so that was really cool, and now it's great to be involved in the recovery of Demo 1.
That's awesome to hear. It was one thing for us to be able to watch it from Mission Control. What was it like watching Dragon splash down with your own eyes, Shane?
Absolutely incredible. I mean, there was a lot of excitement building on the boat, you know, the 30 minutes or so prior to entry, and then once, you know, one person saw the drogues open, everybody's yelling and pointing and all excited. So it was really, really neat. And from our perspective, it looked absolutely perfect. So I'm not sure what the data will show otherwise, but it looked really amazing. We have a beautiful day out here, very calm seas, and couldn't ask for better weather.
And so, Shane, obviously you didn't come down in this capsule today, but you have come down in a capsule, but on land. What's this experience being out on the ocean been like? How does that really compare from when you touched down over in Kazakhstan?
Yeah, good question. As we're sitting here talking, it's been, 45, 50 minutes in splashdown, and I'm thinking, you know what, there's a crew in there, and that's a long time to be waiting to get picked up, so we'll tighten up that timeline a bit, just knowing the crew's probably not going to feel very well at this point, and the sooner we can get to them and get them on deck and then eventually back on land will help their recovery process.
All right, so we're continuing to get these views. What's kind of ahead for you and the rest of the teams? I know you said it's going to be about a 30-minute or a 30-hour boat ride back into harbor.
Yeah, that'll be probably about the same going back. I think we'll be out here another hour or so, maybe 2 hours, just getting everything situated. And the SpaceX team on Go Searcher, once they give us the go, then we'll start heading back to port. And we're supposed to arrive late Saturday night back into Port Canaveral.
All right, well, Shane, we'll let you get back to watching all the operations. I know you got a job to do other than talking to us, but I do really appreciate you calling in from all the way out there in Atlantic. It was a great splashdown, and we'll see you when you're back in Houston.
Sounds great. Thank you, guys, and enjoy the rest of the scenes out here as you're getting them from the Go Navigator. Take care.
All right. And that was NASA astronaut Shane Kimbrough. He's out with the NASA teams who are on a boat watching as the Go Searcher gets a little bit closer. Looks like pretty soon they're going to start reeling that Dragon in, and we're going to get to see it go up onto the Dragon nest.
So you saw a couple of seconds ago the shot on your screen of the back of the boat itself. That is the cradle that you saw. That's what we've been referring to as the nest. It's designed specifically for the Crew Dragon design, and that is exactly where, once the lifting arms have lifted the capsule out of the water, and it'll place it back down in that spot. And then that is basically where, if there were astronauts on board, that is the position in which they would be egressing from out of the capsule. Looks like we're getting closer and closer to the capsule.
And it should be in range soon. As we've talked about, it's expected to be about an hour or a little bit less post-splashdown for the capsule to be back up on the boat. And as you kind of heard Shane talk about, really you just want to try and get the crew out of there and in a more stable environment as quickly as possible. And then you can actually start take the boat and start heading back into port. And if you missed some of the data earlier in the show, they are a little over 200 nautical miles out to sea right now, which is why we were hearing it's going to take them about 30 hours to come back in. Once we have crew on board, that's not going to be the case. They're going to be in much closer to land, within about 20 or 24 nautical miles, and so that gives you the option to be back at shore in just a couple of hours. But as Kate pointed out earlier, there is a helipad on that boat. So if for any reason they needed to get the crew back much quicker, they could actually airlift them out and then bring them right back to dry land there in Florida. But the gap continuing to close. It sounds like operations are definitely picking up here in SpaceX headquarters if you're starting to hear some of that. But everything looking great so far. We should have that Dragon on the boat in just a little bit. continuing to watch Dragon's recovery. At this point, the teams have already lowered the vessel's hydraulic lift mechanism down into the water as they're getting ready to bring that Dragon spacecraft up into the on-deck translation system that SpaceX decided to call the Nest. And Dragon's going to remain in that nest during its journey back to the coast, where it's going to arrive at Port Canaveral, Florida. Again, we're expecting that to take about 30 hours or so. For this mission, it'll take them that long to make their way back because they're a little over 200 nautical miles out to sea. But for crewed missions, as we've said, the landing zone's only going to be a couple hours ride away from port, and that's just so SpaceX can quickly get those returning astronauts back to dry land, where things are a little bit stable, and after you've been in microgravity for about 6 months, your feet will probably appreciate that. The capsule pretty soon, though, is going to get lifted and set into that nest, and then they're going to center and orient the vehicle. And then Dragon will eventually get translated into the hangar aboard the ship so that the teams can open up the hatch. And for missions with astronauts aboard, we're almost at the point where the recovery teams would be assisting the crew to get out of Dragon. So we're almost there. That would happen shortly after they get back onto the ship. In aerospace terms, we call that the crew's egress from the spacecraft. And under the typical circumstances, the SpaceX recovery team is going to be helping out the crew of Dragon within 1 hour of landing.
Yeah, so you can see on your screen there, Dragon is getting closer and closer to the back end of the recovery ship. Just a minute or two ago, we saw the crew member that was responsible for attaching all the appropriate rigging to the vessel jump off the capsule and back into the water. Right now we're just waiting for Dragon to lift up and out of the water and into the nest.
And there it goes.
So there facing us is what we call the side hatch, and that is where, as Dan just mentioned, the astronauts would, if we had astronauts on board today, where they would be exiting. The top hatch is what we use to connect to the ISS, and that is currently hidden underneath the nose cone. But like we said, astronauts will be coming out of the side hatch. And we got a beautiful shot there. Now the hydraulic lift is coming back towards us, and it is preparing to lower the Dragon capsule into its nest. Like we said, we are treating this demonstration mission with the recovery operations as if there were actual astronauts on board. And of course, before we would be able to open the hatch, we would have to make sure that the spacecraft's cabin pressure is equalized with the outside environment before doing so. So once Dragon is seated, and you can hear some cheers behind me as the remaining folks that we have here on the SpaceX team outside of Mission Control are cheering with the placement of Dragon into the nest there, as you can see. You might also notice that the thermal protective system that we have on the outside of Dragon, if you were watching during launch, was a pristine white. Of course, upon re-entry, like we mentioned before, there was plasma, of course, as it re-entered through Earth's atmosphere. So we have a lovely toasted marshmallow there sitting in the nest of our recovery ship, which is, I just think it's such a cool view now that we're bringing the Dragon down, and we are obviously recovering our rockets, and it's just really cool to see that evidence of return back to Earth is really wonderful.
Yeah, and we had fantastic luck with the weather today. The sea states were relatively calm by all reports, only a couple of clouds dotting the sky. Had great views of Dragon all the way down under its parachutes, even before its parachutes. We saw it just after that plane, entry interface, and we were getting some really cool views from the WB-57 airplane. But with Dragon back on the boat, that's about it for us. We're just now at about the end of this mission. So at this point, as we had talked about, the recovery personnel would assist in the astronauts getting out of Dragon, and those medical teams would be standing by, and there's medical evaluation rooms on board. But no people on board. Ripley won't need a medical exam, but they will be getting all of the data back from the sensors placed around Ripley, that anthropomorphic test device. on board as they get all of the different G-forces that Dragon was exposed to, the sound environment, everything that the crew would experience, Ripley just experienced. But this mission started just about 6 days ago with that early morning launch on March 2nd. We had a successful approach and docking to the International Space Station, did all of the demonstrations as expected for the mission. It was docked for the last 5 days. They tested Dragon's communications and power systems with the space station. They unloaded about 400 pounds of cargo and loaded 300 pounds of cargo back on. We had that undocking just a couple of hours ago, a successful re-entry, 4 great parachutes, and a splashdown in the Atlantic Ocean at 8:45 a.m. Eastern Time, 5:45 a.m. for us over here on the Pacific Coast. So it was really a fantastic mission. It's been a huge honor for me to be out here at Hawthorne to share this with everybody and to share it with my SpaceX counterparts out here. A successful mission, the first successful test flight of NASA's Commercial Crew Program to the International Space Station.
Yeah. So as Dan said, it's been an incredible honor to share this mission with the public. All the teams are incredibly thrilled with the success of this demonstration mission, which of course paves the way for our first crewed flight later this year. Be sure to follow along with SpaceX and NASA on our social media for updates and next steps on the Commercial Crew Program. Until next time, see you then.
important step for the Commercial Crew program, more testing with our Space Launch System rocket engine, and a new show that explores how we do what we do. A few of the stories to tell you about this week at NASA.
Ignition, liftoff.
On March 2nd, the SpaceX Crew Dragon spacecraft launched aboard a Falcon 9 rocket from our Kennedy Space Center on Demo 1. The SpaceX Demo 1 mission is the first uncrewed test flight of NASA's Commercial Crew program. The round trip to the International Space Station is designed to provide data on the performance of the company's Falcon 9 rocket, Crew Dragon spacecraft, and other systems and operations that NASA will evaluate as part of the process to certify SpaceX to carry astronauts to and from the space station.
What today really represents is a new era in spaceflight, an era where we are looking forward to being one customer as an agency and as a country in a robust commercial marketplace in low Earth orbit.
SpaceX would not be here without NASA, without the incredible work that was done before SpaceX even started, and without the support after SpaceX did start. So thank you.
SpaceX's Demo 2 test flight, which will fly NASA astronauts to the space station, is targeted to launch in July. Meanwhile, Boeing, our other partner developing spacecraft to launch American astronauts from American soil, is targeting the launch of its CST-100 Starliner spacecraft's uncrewed orbital flight test for no earlier than April. Our Stennis Space Center in Mississippi conducted the latest in a series of tests with an RS-25 engine controller for use on a future flight of our new Space Launch System rocket, or SLS. The SLS will use 4 of the engines to launch astronauts aboard our Orion spacecraft on missions to the moon and beyond. NASA Science Live is our new monthly show that gives a behind-the-scenes look at how the agency explores Earth and outer space. To the Moon and Beyond, the first episode, looks at how science conducted on the moon in the past informs current missions studying the moon, as well as plans for future lunar exploration missions. You can see the show on NASA television, on the agency's website, and on social media. For more info, go to nasa.gov/NASA Science Live. A new experimental type of deep space communications technology is scheduled to be demonstrated on the International Space Station this spring. The demonstration involves X-ray communications, or XCOM. In principle, XCOM can send more data using less energy than the radio wave technology currently used to communicate between spacecraft and Earth. The experiment could lead to data rates in the gigabits per second range for deep space missions. A new experiment planned for launch to the space station in August 2022 will for the first time gather global observations of an important driver of space weather in our upper atmosphere. The experiment will help us understand and ultimately forecast space weather, which can adversely affect technology, astronauts in space, radio communications, and even overwhelm power grids. That's what's up this week at NASA. For more on these and other stories, follow us on the web at nasa.gov/twan.
Station, this is Houston. Are you ready for the event?
We are ready for the event, Houston.
CBS News, this is Mission Control Houston. Please call station for a voice check.
Station, this is Bill Harwood with CBS News. How do you hear me?
We have you loud and clear. Welcome aboard the space station.
Well, thank you very much, and we really appreciate you taking the time to chat. And, you know, you took a fantastic photo of the Crew Dragon coming in against the limb of the Earth the other day. Tell me what this mission means to NASA and its importance for ending the agency's sole reliance on Russia to get astronauts to and from the station.
Well, when I took that picture and shared that out, you know, I commented the fact that this is a new era of spaceflight. And that's absolutely what we feel. We've been feeling this build since 2014 when these contracts were first awarded to Boeing and SpaceX for delivery of astronauts to low Earth orbit so that NASA and our international partners can continue exploration to deep space, starting with the Moon and Mars and the future Gateway. And so what this is a very significant step that marks opening up of the low Earth orbit to commercial companies, not only to shuttle NASA, but perhaps other customers. You know, this is a model where NASA is one customer of many, and so I think that the possibilities are endless for low Earth orbit for science research and commercial companies.
I'm going to come back to that in just a minute, but for as long as I've got you with the mic, Ann, you know, you guys are going to be joined next week by 3 new crew members, including Nick Hague and Christina Cook, and you get to do 2 EVAs, we hear, including one with Christina. So you guys will be the 13th and 14th women to walk in space, I think, since 1984. Is that significant to you? I mean, how should we view that?
Yes, we do have the new crew coming up. We have 3 EVAs scheduled at the end of March. We are very fortunate to work with a very highly skilled and highly trained crew. As far as the significance, you know, I really believe that the fact that we don't really have to talk about it too much when we're making crew assignments shows that I think that we are really just, I suppose, symptoms that you know, equality's been reached. When NASA makes crew assignments, that's not something that they take into account. And so we're really focused on that first spacewalk on March 22nd, and plans for spacewalks after that won't be finalized until after we know the results of that one.
Well, when that does happen, and I understand exactly what you're saying, I've had the same thought myself, but I guess just because it's only happened 12 times in the past over, you know, with scores of male spacewalkers, does that make you a role model, whether you want to be or not? I mean, do you think young women can look at this as another sign that even in space, these doors are now open?
Well, I certainly do think that representation is important for a lot of people, a lot of kids. If they want to grow up and be astronauts, you know, it's important for a lot of people to look out and see someone that looks like them. And you know, what I always tell them is to keep their head down and keep working. And if I can be an inspiration to any child that wants to grow up and get into the business of space exploration, then I'm absolutely thrilled to do so.
I assume you and Christina have trained together. I just was wondering briefly what you look forward to the most about putting that helmet on and going out the door.
Well, for me, I've wanted to be an astronaut since I was 3 years old, and certainly, you know, when you picture an astronaut out on a spacewalk, that's kind of the quintessential, you know, moment of becoming, you know, when you want to be an astronaut when you're little, that's kind of what you think about. So for me, honestly, my head's down in preparations. There's no routine day in space flight. Spacewalks are one of the more riskier things that we do up here, and so it's very important that we're keeping our heads down, we're focused on our task, and I suppose after it's all gone successfully, then I'll step back and kind of take it all in.
Thank you very much, and let me get a quick one in for David, if I could. You know, David, you were the board engineer co-pilot during your launch aboard the Soyuz, and I saw you inside the Crew Dragon, and in that wide-angle lens, it looks fairly roomy in comparison. What are your impressions of this new spacecraft?
It certainly physically looks kind of very slick inside. The Soyuz, as you know, has gone through decades of iterations, of improvements, of adding equipment. So, any spacecraft ends up looking the way it looks. So I don't know how it will be to fly the Dragon. I've not had that training. The one thing that I enjoyed about the Soyuz was this notion that there is in most cases a way for the crew to act manually and take over should something go wrong. Maybe a reflection of the times when it was designed. Crew Dragon, it was a beautiful moment to see it approach. You saw that amazing photos that Anne was able to take. And it is a moving moment to see the opening of a new chapter where we have this new possibility, a new tool in our quiver for space exploration.
Station, this is a station. That concludes the CBS News portion of the event. Please stand by for a voice check from NBC News.
This is NBC News Washington. Do you copy?
Copy. Standing by. We have you loud and clear. Welcome aboard the International Space Station.
Hi, guys. Nice to see you. It's Tom Costello at NBC News in Washington. I'd love to talk to you about rugby and my kid's sore throat, Doctor, but why don't we cut right to the chase if we could? I'll tell you what, Dr. Saint-Jacques, can we begin with your thoughts about how we are now looking at a new era in space? Are you guys excited about following the SpaceX launch, and now we've got a Boeing mission coming up? Does it feel to you like a new day has dawned?
I tell you what, the way that you said it absolutely right. The new day has dawned. This is the dawn of a new era in spaceflight, and those of us that have been involved in the business over the past years have been feeling this momentum build. And I've shared with friends and family over the past years that we are on the cusp of an absolutely amazing period of spaceflight. Never in the history of spaceflight have American astronauts trained to fly on 4 separate vehicles and developed 4 separate vehicles at the same time, and that's what we're doing right now. So our astronaut corps of less than 60 astronauts are currently, flying and training and developing, continuing on the Soyuz. Now we have Boeing and SpaceX and Orion as well for deep space exploration. So it's absolutely amazing when you think about the destinations that we can go to, and commercializing low Earth orbit really opens up the possibilities not only for NASA but for industry.
All right, I'll tell you what, Carl, can I stick with you for just a minute here? I hate to ask a redundant question, but we all have to ask Tom questions on our own time. You are about to participate in an all-female spacewalk, and I'm wondering, does that also feel like, breaking barriers?
I do understand that. I think that's how it can be seen. I think from our perspective, we're really focused on our first spacewalk on March 22nd. And then we kind of, these events are very significant, they're very complicated, and they're one of the riskier tasks that we undertake. And so up here on Space Station, our heads are down, we're focused on the work, and I think maybe after that I'll have time to reflect on it